All right, I think we are live. So let me know if you guys can hear me okay. And if so, we can just join in here and start with all the questions and stuff. So hopefully you guys are okay with this earlier time. I know I usually do these a little bit later, but because of the Super Bowl today here in America, I decided to do this earlier because I can't compete with the Super Bowl, obviously. So yeah, like all the other live streams I do every month, it's always going to be priority given to all these super chats. Those always are going to be the first questions I answer, and then I'll try and answer as many other questions as I can. Usually I'm pretty good at answering, even some of the ones that aren't super chats. So hopefully we can have another fun chat like we have in the past. So I see we have Langston here. He's the first person that said hello. Hopefully you guys can all hear me okay. Maybe give me a thumbs up or something if you can. But it looks like everything's hopefully good here. So Fast Lines here. Thanks for joining. And Bob V, thank you so much for joining too. I know all you guys are regularly in the comments on all my reviews and other videos and stuff. And I really appreciate all the support. It really means a lot. And so thanks for joining. Fastline says it's a bad time to buy a car right now. It depends on how you look at it. I still think that there's a lot of dealers and stuff that are trying to offer some pretty good incentives to get people to come out, even, in the midst of a pandemic and stuff. And Bob says he'd still watch even if the Super Bowl were on because he doesn't watch the Super Bowl. Yeah, I know probably less and less people every year are watching the Super Bowl these days. But, I know a lot of people still do. A lot of people that are into cars are also into sports and stuff. So that's why I wanted to steer clear of the Super Bowl. But, I mean, I'm not going to watch it myself. I just watch the commercials. I think they're usually pretty funny, but I don't really care about the game or anything. But yeah, we have Aiden says hello from Atlanta. Thanks for joining, Aiden. And Langston has the first question here. He says, do you like the new Pathfinder and Titan? I guess you probably mean the Frontier that just was revealed. But I think they're both nice. I kind of covered them in the weekly update this past week. I think, I really love the Frontier. I think they did a great job with it. The specs are very impressive. It's very competitive. I wish the interior was maybe a little bit more plush, but it is, supposed to be an affordable mid-sized truck, so I can't blame them for not having a more luxurious trim. But it is kind of interesting how there's only like the S, the SV, and then just the Pro 4X versions. There is no luxurious SL version like you get with other Nissans, which I kind of find interesting. The Pathfinder we'll have to see because that one, since it's not on an all-new platform, I'm worried it's not going to be big enough. So I'm like I kind of mentioned in the weekly update, I'm gonna have to see, how much third row legroom there is and stuff like that. Because I do know that I think Autoblog or someone mentioned that the cargo space is a little less already than all the newest competitors. And when you have a brand new generation of something, you don't want to come out behind. You want to come out ahead, and then everyone else catches up to you, and then you redo it to try and stay at the top of the pack. But it sounds like with the Pathfinder, Nissan might not be coming out very competitive right out of the gate. We'll have to wait and see. It has some nice aspects to it, but I don't know if the Pathfinder is going to have enough to dethrone the Telluride and the Palisade and all those other very impressive vehicles, but we'll have to see. Fastline says, my parents are trying to give me a 2003 Impala. Is it good? Well, any free car, I would argue, is probably pretty decent. I'm not sure if that's your first car or, what your situation is, but I think they're fairly reliable. Those things were around forever. And, that platform in the 2003s is a very dated platform that I think goes back to almost like the 80s and stuff. So should be a solid car. Obviously, it's not going to be very fun from a performance standpoint. They're not sporty or anything, but, it should be a good first car or something to, get you from point A to point B with a decent amount of comfort as well. So I think that's not bad. We have Newt Media here that joined us to help moderate. Thanks so much for joining. And it's great to have you here. Luke O has the first super chat here of the day. So he says, my buddy bought a 2018 Jeep Renegade 6-speed manual this weekend. Well, congrats to him. That's awesome that he bought a manual. Thanks for the super chat as well. I've never driven a manual Renegade. I don't know. I'll be curious to hear if it's a good experience or not. But I think it should be the same kind of manual you get in the Dodge Dart, if I'm not mistaken. I did do a quick drive video on one of those a long time ago. So maybe it's similar to that, but it's pretty cool that they offer that with a manual still. Or I think they did. I think they discontinued it with a little refresh for 2020. But yeah, thank you so much for the super chat. Samuel says, hi, Matt. What makes you like the Mustang so much? It's just odd seeing the transition from BRZ to muscle. Totally get that. So basically, I always loved Mustangs, and the whole bullet thing is really what made me love Mustangs. I mean, I liked Mustangs in general, but I really just love Bullet. And so Bullet is kind of what got me into Mustangs. And so, I just watched the movie as a kid, thought it was the coolest car ever, seeing it jump over the hills and stuff. And so that was kind of like, I always just wanted a Bullet Mustang, not necessarily just a regular Mustang. So I think that was always kind of something that I wanted. And so basically my transition back whenever I had like the BRZ. So when I first bought the BRZ, I still had my Legacy GT Spec B, and I was under the impression whenever I had a daily driver, I needed to get to work. I needed an all-wheel drive car in Pittsburgh with the snow and stuff. I just wanted to have that extra peace of mind. So that's why I never contemplated the idea of daily driving a rear-wheel drive car. So that's why, even though I kind of was into Mustangs, even back when I was a teenager, I never decided to, go for one, just because I was too nervous about driving it in the snow in Pittsburgh and stuff and going back and forth to college and all that. So that's why I always, I was planning on having my Legacy and the BRZ side by side. And then whenever I was driving the BRZ so much and I was able to actually drive it in the snow and get from point A to point B just fine on snow tires with the BRZ, that's what kind of opened my mind to like, oh wait, I can have a rear-wheel drive car in Pittsburgh and have it as a daily driver and probably not have too many dicey situations. So that's kind of when I was like, okay, well, I love the BRZ. I was sticking with that. At that point, I was still kind of more to the Japanese stuff than I was the American stuff. Just because if you think about, even when the BRZ came out, that was like when the 2013 Mustangs first came out. And I think, 2011s, whenever they had the Coyote motor and, they just were starting to get fast. But up until 2011, like the Mustang V8 had 300 horsepower. So from a JDM standpoint, I'm like, well, my Legacy GT already has 250. So what's the point of having a big V8 if I only get 50 more horsepower? So it was a lot less competitive, back then. And then, the muscle car companies just in the past, 10 years here really brought their A game and, really made some impressive stuff. And I think that's kind of what drew me into it. And, I could have gone for like the older Bullet back in the day. But at that point, I was kind of just ready for the new Mustang. So I was like, well, if I'm going to get a Mustang, I'm going to wait for the new version because I like having the newest of everything. And so that's kind of, why I eventually had to get rid of the BRZ. That was a completely separate situation that made me get rid of that. But whenever I was able to, get into the Mustang, I think it was just something that I always had wanted to do at some point. And and that's kind of why. I mean, I still do miss the BRZ a lot. I miss its light handling and being able to floor a car and not be going way over the speed limit. And that's why I'm so tempted to get a new BRZ. I mean, I wouldn't want to replace the Bullet because the Bullet's a keeper for life. But if I could afford to justify having another hardtop rear-wheel drive two-door sports car, which I can't justify and probably never will be able to justify unless I'm loaded someday. But otherwise, I think the BRZ is going to have to remain just a pipe dream, but I would love to get a new one because I do really miss that one. But great question. We have a couple more super chats here, still kicking it. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Matt, how do you feel about the Volkswagen GTI? I think the GTI is a really fun car. It's a really great all-arounder. It's a fun daily driver. It's very practical, obviously. And I think they're really nice. The only thing I don't like about the GTIs is that they can be a little bit of a maintenance, not nightmare, but they can get to be a little bit more maintenance intensive than, a Japanese vehicle. It's just the whole German thing. They like throwing check engine lights. They like, having weird glitches and stuff. And, there's tons of jokes and memes about Mark 7 GTIs in particular, constantly having issues and stuff like that. Even Jack from the Savage Geese channel was joking about that on his Instagram with his GTI this past week. They like to have those little electrical gremlins, and that's kind of why I personally would probably never go for one, just because I like having a vehicle that's pretty reliable. I was burned too much by my Mini to go into anything that's too dicey these days. But the GTI is a great car otherwise. I totally like them. And especially if you lease one, or something like that and only have it for, a couple of years, shouldn't be too bad, I'm guessing. Newt says, is Matt moving? How did I miss that, LMAO? Yeah, I don't have anything behind me here. I am actually moving here. So we are in the process of working on that. And hopefully the next live stream will be in a new house. We'll have to see how everything plays out and the timing of everything. But that's the plan. So there'll be a new set for the weekly update here next month and stuff. So it's pretty exciting, but it's very time intensive. Moving is a lot of work, a lot of stressful things, a million moving pieces and stuff. It's a lot, but yes, that's why it's a little more bare here It'll be a nice upgrade for the new house for sure. Moises, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, thoughts on the upcoming 21 Acura TLX Type S. I'm really excited for it. I think it'll be a great, Audi S4 competitor, stuff like that. We'll just have to see how it handles, with the extra weight and stuff. But honestly, Acura's been knocking it out of the park. Every single time I get into a brand new Acura, I absolutely love it. And they are just so impressive with their driving, with their luxury, with everything about them, honestly. And so I have pretty high hopes for the Type S. I think it's going to just be hopefully even more goodness than the regular TLX, which I was really impressed with. And I'm excited to test it out here, hopefully sometime this summer or something. But yeah, thank you so much again for the super chat. And thanks, Newt, for the congratulations on the house. It's going to be exciting. Unfortunately, we're not upgrading garages that much. We'll have a 2-car garage instead of the 1 car that we have currently. So Beth's car will finally have a garage and won't be getting destroyed out with the elements and all the bird crap and stuff outside. But other than that, no extra garage space other than just the 2. So no room for an extra 3rd car. But hopefully I'll be able to come up with some type of solution for that down the road. But as of right now, it's just focusing on having more room for the baby and all that kind of stuff. So that's the main focus. Got to put family first. Luca, thank you so much for another super chat. He said, I love the video you did about the Carfax with your previous vehicles. It made me look up some of mine. Good luck with the move. Hope you have a garage. Yeah. So 2-car garage will be nice. I'm glad you like that Carfax video. It didn't do amazing views or anything, but I think that, hopefully those of you that watched it really liked it. It was a lot of fun to do. I just have my own personal curiosities of I wonder what's happened to them. And to me, it's very interesting. Maybe some people it's kind of boring or they just don't care, but I think a lot of people feel a little sentimental about cars they used to own. So hopefully you enjoyed it, but that's awesome. You looked up some of your old Carfaxes as well. It's a shame they're so expensive though. That is one thing. I wish that, it wasn't so expensive to run Carfaxes to see that kind of stuff, but, it is what it is. They're one of the only ones. It's like them and AutoCheck, so they kind of have a little bit of a monopoly. I can charge whatever they want, unfortunately. That washer nerd, thank you so much for the super chat. He said, what car will replace Beth's Mercedes with baby Maran coming soon? So her lease isn't going to be up actually until the middle of next year, actually. So we still have a ways to go, and we might get out of the lease a little bit early to get something a little more practical. But as of right now, it's going to be a Mercedes GLB. That's the car she's been loving. She sat in one whenever they first came out at the LA Auto Show back in 2019, end of 2019. She sat in it, loved it. She loves the looks of it. She likes the boxier look of it. Should have a little bit more space, at least more stacking room than you get in a C-Class. But we're probably going to be, about a year or so away before we swap. So it'll be a while. We're still going to just stick with the C-Class, and hopefully that'll be able to pull baby duty pretty decently. And I'm also going to have all the press cars. So between those two, we'll be covered. We don't need. I do have a whole running list of potential dad cars for me if I needed an extra car on top of the Bullet. But honestly, I could even put a baby seat in the back of the Bullet if I had to. It wouldn't be super comfortable, but it is possible. My buddy did it with his Mustang. So that's also an option as well if need be. If I don't have a press car and for some reason Beth's Mercedes is off somewhere else, then I can always take the Bullet. But for now, I think we're not going to do a dad car, even though I have so many cool ideas for dad cars and stuff, but in the meantime, they're just going to have to stay on the back burner. Samuel, thank you so much for the super chat. He said, congrats on the house. Acura has done such a good job with their new RDX. It's like a baby Stelvio. It's a great value. I agree. RDX is actually one of the top picks on my dad car list of vehicles. I was so impressed with that, and it's just... you get even way more space than you get in a Stelvio. I mean, it's a really spacious SUV that still handles fantastically. Still is so much fun. It has a fantastic stereo. I just love everything about the RDX, honestly. So that would be one of them. They're great. But thank you again for the super chat. Smile Per Mile says, hi, Matt. Do you reckon your EcoBoost Mustang in the Netherlands would have the clear taillights by now? I'm not sure if that rule applies if you're importing it after it's already been sold new. I know, you have to have the clear ones for new ones that are sold. I'm not sure beyond that. I don't know if they swapped it, but I did have someone actually on the Mustang 6G forums that reached out to me that's in the Netherlands that was actually able to do a little bit of digging to see if they could find my EcoBoost, because I guess they have their own VIN check site that they have over there. And so he ran it through there, Couldn't find anything though. So he said it could have actually moved on to another place, because I guess sometimes they go through the Netherlands and then go somewhere else from there. So who knows where it's at? So it's a mystery, but I'm guessing still somewhere over in Europe. But yeah, I don't know, what's happened to it, but maybe someday I'll find out. It'll be kind of cool. Naveen says, why do automotive journalists have unrealistic expectations for Toyota or Lexus simply because they aren't sporty, fast, luxurious enough? Does not being sporty or fast or luxurious make them bad? Definitely not. I kind of talked about this, honestly, with my G80 review that I did last week, where it wasn't sporty, really. It's just a luxury car. And so basically, whenever I'm judging vehicles, it really comes down to what is their intended purpose and what is the appeal of them? Like, the G80, people that are buying a base G80 probably are not, they're not paying for the sportier engine. They're not paying for the sportier suspension and stuff. So someone who's getting rid of those options, is either budget constrained or they just don't care about the sportiness. And so why would I ding a base G80 that's only meant for luxury? If, as long as it does that well, I'm good with it, which is why I said in the G80 review, it's a great car. It does everything it's meant to be. It's supposed to be a luxury car. It's priced like a luxury car. It feels worthy of that price. And so I have no complaints with it. And so some of the stuff with Toyota is that, Toyota and Lexus is that they're, sometimes they just kind of know that they have a very dedicated fan base. And so they don't have to have the most cutting edge stuff. That makes them one of the more reliable brands because of it, because they're not doing anything that's cutting edge and they're not really testing the limits of, moving the ball forward. Basically, they're just kind of on par with the rest in a lot of ways. And that's okay. And for some people, they value that reliability over everything else. And so it just comes down to what your situation is. Like some people would pick a RAV4 over a CRV because, they just want the reliability of knowing it's a Toyota, it's going to run forever. It doesn't have to have the turbo engine like the CRV. And, some people, you don't get as much power or as much torque because you don't have the turbo, but you also get better reliability. So it just comes down to personal preference with that kind of stuff. I think me personally, I don't have unrealistic expectations. It's just that I want them to be competitive. If you're charging, $30,000 for a Camry, I want the interior to feel just as nice as a $30,000 Accord interior does. Like, to me, that's not unreasonable. It's like, if you're paying the same amount of money, both places, they should be comparable. And if one is worse than the other, then that's what I do as a reviewer, is I point out those little nitpicks. Now, obviously, that's just the job of a reviewer. If you're someone who's, in a 10-year-old Toyota and you hop into the new one, it's going to feel like the nicest thing in the world to you and you'll be totally happy. Same thing goes for like Ford F-150 buyers. Like, they could go check out a Ram with a way nicer interior, but they like their F-150. They want to stick with an F-150 and they're coming out of an old F-150. And so anything that's not their old F-150 is going to feel much nicer. They'll probably be happy enough with it. And that's enough to make them sign on the dotted line and drive off with the new F-150. So, there's nothing wrong with that kind of mentality. It's just that, from a reviewing standpoint, I'm looking for what's the best in the segment because I'm trying to give people the best advice. I'm assuming if you're watching the review, you're open-minded enough to consider other things than just the things that you're personally biased towards. And so that's why I'm like, here's how it compares. And I think reviewing is all about comparison. That's how we judge if one thing's better than another. Which team is going to be better in the Super Bowl today? Whichever one wins, they're the one that comes out on top. And so it's the same with cars and anything else in life. The one that's the best, gets the praise. So, all right, H2OI official, thank you so much for the super chat. I don't see the message there, but if it pops back up, I'll be more than happy to check it out. But it looks like it wasn't something mature, so thanks for moderating that, Newt. But I appreciate the super chat nonetheless. Luco, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, Genesis GV80, new mom car. I will actually be having a GV80 that is going to be coming in on Wednesday. And so I'm going to be very curious to see how it does. It took me a while to finally get my hands on one, but I'm excited to finally be able to review one. And so we'll have to see, if it's decent. I don't know if it's going to be enough for Beth to want to get rid of her Mercedes. The GV70 would be a little more comparable to like a GLB or a GLC, something like that. So, maybe, we'll see. But I think she really just likes the Mercedes, mostly because it's familiar to her. She knows how to work the Mercedes infotainment systems. She likes the nicer materials that the Mercedes has. She likes the dealership experience. Our dealer is great, and that's a really strong thing for her as well. And so there's a lot of factors that give her that Mercedes brand loyalty, but she is also open to other things and stuff. So we'll have to just see what happens. Thank you so much again for the super chat. We have Marco's joined. Thanks for joining, Marco. He's got a question here. He said he recently lost his job. Would you recommend YouTube as a full-time job? Any advice? I'm sorry to hear you lost your job. I remember hearing about the shakeup there with the autonomous car stuff in Pittsburgh. But yeah, as far as doing it full-time, it is a challenge. It took me a while before I made the leap. I think I was close to 100,000 subscribers on the channel. I think I was at around 100,000 whenever I actually decided to, go full time. But I mean, for many, many years until I, was really getting a good amount of views every month, it was just, I had to do another side job. I worked at Harrison Auto Sales and a few other places to kind of supplement my income. So it's just really going to come down to, what your financial requirements are and all that kind of stuff as far as, whether it's something that you think you can do full time. But I definitely, I wouldn't have taken the leap myself, without having a solid backup, which is why I kind of weaned off of the full-time job, by going to a part-time job and then part-time YouTube and slowly blending it in until I was able to do it full-time. But yeah, that's the only thing I would say, because you don't want to take the risk and then, have to, come up with money some way or another because, it's not blowing up as quickly as you'd like it to. So I'd definitely say to, maybe hang on until, you have a really strong following, consistent views, you're bringing in enough money. It's also really time consuming, which is the toughest part about going full time with YouTube is that, like for me, it was tough because working a part-time job and then coming home, doing weekly update, doing a car review, all that kind of stuff. It was a lot. I mean, there was a lot of late nights there where I was, working at least 12 hours a day between the two jobs, probably usually more like, 14 or 16 hours a day. I'll be up till midnight editing a video and then wake up at, 6 a.m. to go to my normal job and stuff. So it was a lot. So that's really the toughest thing. So that's why if you can kind of, put in as little time as possible to YouTube and see if you can actually still get it to grow pretty nicely. And then, once you have more time to spend, it's just like pouring gasoline on the fire at that point. And then you can just, actually convert it over to your full-time thing. But it's definitely a lot of work. That's one thing people don't realize how much time it takes for sure. All right, so we got a couple more super chats here. Thanks to Greg for a super chat. He says, F-Series coming back to IS and LC models. I saw that report this week. Still isn't confirmed, but I really hope that they do that. There has been, I think even last year, All Car News and stuff has been reporting that they heard about an IS 500 coming, but it wouldn't be an F. So there is a lot of rumors about V8s coming back to some of those Lexus models for a final hurrah. We'll have to see if they do it or not. I think for the IS, it might also come down to how well this new generation is received as far as how much, they sell. Because if it seems like it's not enough, and there's not enough people that are excited about it, then maybe you bring in the F model, get people excited, get people looking at the IS again. That could kind of trickle down to the lower models as well. So maybe something like that is in the cards. The LC, I would love to see them do an F version of that. I think doing a sharper version would be great. But yeah, I just, I think we'll have to see about that because, that the LC, they're saying that's going to be using a twin turbo V8, which is a new motor, which was rumored to be canceled, but then back on again for the truck. So that's all still kind of up in the air. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. Daniel, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, can you recommend an all-season tire for my 2016 Mustang? The $175 Kumos from Tire Rack have not lasted, though that might have been related to my right foot. So my favorite all-season tire, from what I've heard, I don't have any personal experience, would be the Michelin Pilot Sport for all season. So they have an all-season version of the Pilot Sports. And from what I've seen, it is basically it seems like it's 90% of the performance of the summer tire version with the all-season traction. Then it's very good, supposedly, in, some of the light snow applications, things like that. So, I mean, they're expensive though. I think, those are probably at least $250 a pop or something for those. But if you're willing to go up in price, I think that's probably the best all-season tire, hands down. Another really good all-season, I think, what was the one a long time ago I used to run? Trying to think of the name of it now because it's been a while. Yeah, I can't remember which one it was, but it was one of the smaller brands. Sumitomo, that's it. The Sumitomo, they have like a performance all season, and I ran the summer tire version of that on my Legacy GT way back when. That's a little bit cheaper. I've heard good things about their performance all season one as well, but I again do not have personal experience with it, so I can't vouch for it. But those would be the two that I would possibly check out if you're not happy with the Kumas. But hopefully you can find something that you like. All right, let me see here. I got some more questions. Harris says he likes the new Gen IS. He just dislikes how they kept the older interior. Yeah, that's really the biggest problem with those. And it's not even so much like the materials. Like the materials are fine. It's just that it's cramped. Like it just feels, smaller than, honestly, the interior feels like it's about the same size, at least up front, as like a CLA or an A3. Like it's really like kind of that small. The back seat's a decent size still, but yeah, that's really the only thing. I think if you sit in an IS and then you sit in a TLX or you sit in, any of the other competitors of the IS, it's going to be like you're going to have so much more room and everything else. So I think that kind of hurts it a little bit. Nick, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, when do you think we will see the new Inline 6 from Mazda in a car? When do you think the Mazda 6 will be refreshed? So they released their like financial thing, which had their whole plan about that whole powertrain setup. And I think it was something like 2022, 2023, if my memory serves me right. But I think it's still going to be a little ways off. But, it sounded like the more recent thing that I read was that it's going to be first showing up in the CX-50 or whatever they call a new version of the CX-5. That's going to get it first because, that's their bread and butter. Those SUVs just sell way more. So I think they're going to do that. And then the Mazda 6 would come after that. But I don't know if that's also, since they're partnered up with Lexus on that powertrain, if that like allows Lexus to get in there first with a car application, Mazda takes the SUV application first, or, why, I don't know if there's any kind of juggling going on behind the scenes as to why, the SUV is getting it first, or if it's just because it sells way more. I don't know. But so because of that, I would say, you're probably at least 2 more years away from a new Mazda 6, maybe even a little bit more. Because after they do the CX-50, they might also do a CX-90 or something like that as well. And so, yeah, I have no clue, but hopefully it'll be a couple more years here, but hopefully it won't be too much longer because I know everyone's very excited for that. But Mazda hasn't really talked about it officially, aside from saying for their investors, it's coming, and that's about it. That Washer Nerd says, why does Savage Geese always troll you in his videos? I know he used to do that a long time ago. Unfortunately, I have not had enough time because I've been, so busy moving and stuff to watch any of his newer stuff. So if he has trolled me recently, I have not checked it out. But back a long time ago, we're talking at least 5 or more years ago, he used to do those parody Super Dorks fan things. And back then they kind of did annoy me because I didn't know him and I just thought it was, he just thought I was an idiot, and maybe he does. But I did get to know him a lot better over the past year. We are actually drive partners on the Toyota Highlander launch event. And so hanging out with him for an entire day on that, about a year and a half ago or so, was a ton of fun. There's been a couple other events since then where I've been able to hang out with him and Jack and have dinner with them and talk and stuff, pre-COVID again, back whenever all the press trips were happening and stuff. And they're super cool guys. And they're now, I love their reviews so much. I love their sense of humor. It really like hits me. It's almost like The Onion or something. If you guys ever read The Onion and stuff, it's kind of this very dry kind of humor like that I really love. And it always hits my funny bone. So I love, their Instagram posts and stuff are always hilarious. The hashtags he uses and stuff. It's one of my favorite car review channels actually right now is Savage Geese. They do, and obviously their videos are fantastic. So much good information, top-notch videography and stuff. But they're a really good team too. And I think they're awesome. So if he's trolling me, I'm sure it's all in good fun. And I will happily be the butt of the joke because those guys are awesome. Luke, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, don't know if you've ever talked about this, but what does Beth do for work? So she was a nanny for, the past several years. That's what she did. She was a nanny for a family and, was doing that full time. But then once COVID kind of set in, she ended up losing that just from, it was kind of a mutual thing, as far as, from a safety standpoint. And the kids were all home and stuff. So she didn't need to worry about that. So So since then, she's just been preparing for being a mom and all that. And so she's planning on just being a stay-at-home mom. That's something that we both were really excited about ever since we started dating and stuff. And so that's what she's going to do, is be a stay-at-home mom. And I think it'd be really great. I was raised, in a stay-at-home mom kind of household, and I really enjoyed it. So we're able to do that. So that's what we're going to do. She also does help with editing as well. She edits most of the interior reviews. I still kind of do some final touches and things on those, but that's one thing she has done here in the past year. Now that she's in the interior reviews, she edits those for me. So that is definitely a huge help as well. And she does do a few other things. Obviously, you see her in the interior reviews. She does that as well. So she's contributing in that aspect. And she also does help with a lot of behind the scenes stuff on the channel too. And so that's what she's doing. But yeah, we're excited for her to be a mom here soon. Greg, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, any update on the upcoming WRX engine, horsepower, CVT, etc.? I don't have any other details on that. I mean, the only thing that I know is, what we saw with the leaked timeline of WRX is supposedly coming this fall. STI is not coming until next fall. So fall of 2022 for that, supposedly. And that was, I think, a pre-COVID timeline. So there is some openness for that to be pushed back if it might happen that way. But as far as engine, horsepower, CVT, to the best of my knowledge, from all the speculation that I have accumulated, it sounds like engine will most likely be carryover. Horsepower could potentially be carryover. I've heard maybe a little small bump. I also have heard potentially it could get the 2.4 turbo motor from the Ascent. And so if that's the case, automatic will most likely be CVT, because Subaru, they don't have anything other than a CVT and a manual. So I would say CVT if you're wanting an automatic one, most likely, at least for the WRX. Horsepower could match the Ascent if they end up going in that direction. I don't know if it would be more than the Ascent, especially since that would be competitive horsepower for the segment anyway. So I don't think they need to do more than that. But it would, of course, probably have a unique tune, so it wouldn't feel quite as, mom hauler as the engine does in the Ascent. So that's all I know about that. But it could very well just still continue to be a carryover motor as well. And there's also been reports the 2.4 is only going in the STI. And the rumors there are 400 horsepower, and then the manual would still be sticking around. As far as an automatic STI, they've never offered one, so that would be new territory. They don't have a dual clutch, so unless they raid the Toyota parts bin or something like that to try and come up with something where they, do some type of other thing. I mean, yes, the BRZ does run I think it's an ISN 6-speed, but I don't think they would put that in an STI. I don't know if it would handle that much power. So outside of them going to ZF or something like all the other companies do, I think STI will most likely stay manual only, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But still all speculation. I wish there was more to go off of, but it still is pretty quiet on Subaru's side. So we'll have to see what happens. But thank you so much for the super chat again. Newt found the video of me getting trolled. I'll have to check that out later. I'll have to, and maybe actually, Zach, if you don't mind sending that to me, so I don't lose it, because trying to find it in this chat's going to probably be impossible. But I'd love to check that out. But yeah, he's awesome. We have the one Kia says, good afternoon, Mr. Moran. Will you be officially going on hiatus when your child is born, or will you be running banked videos while you're on paternity leave? I wish I could take a paternity leave, but there's no way I can work ahead that much. There's just way too much of a workload with editing everything and stuff. I just don't have the time to edit that much, because it takes me like 12 hours to edit a car review usually. So, I mean, trying to work ahead is just going to be nearly impossible. This is why it's like so hard for me to even take vacations, because like that is like such a pain, trying to like hurry up and like edit a bunch of stuff so that I can actually take an entire week off. Like it's super hard to do. So as far as paternity leave, probably won't happen. I do already have press cars scheduled through whenever the baby's supposed to be born and stuff. So I will probably continue to just keep it up as much as I possibly can. I might, at least with filming, I'm going to have to keep it up just because the schedule is going to keep rolling with the press cars and stuff. I may have to, if I'm completely exhausted and falling asleep on my keyboard, maybe I'll have to just, have a week without a car review or something and give myself a little bit of time there. But that's going to kind of be on an as needed basis. I'm going to try and keep it going as much as possible, because YouTube, I mean, with the way that algorithm is and stuff, if you're not constantly posting, I mean, it's still, I have all my, 300 other car reviews that I've posted over the past few years that do continue to make money every day. But, as far as it's still very important to keep the new stuff coming to, have YouTube continue to recommend all the old stuff and stuff. It's a very complicated thing, but basically I'll keep the videos coming as much as I possibly can. Kyle, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hi, Matt. Have you ever watched Scotty Kilmer? Since you review cars for a living, do you agree with his opinions on certain brands? He bashes GM, but I still like Chevy. Oh, Scotty. I don't want to get into this too much because it seems like he likes to go after people that ever say anything against him. But I'm not a fan of Scotty's. I think that there's, how do I do this diplomatically? There's some things that he plays into the algorithm with, as far as just clickbaity stuff, which, as many of you know, I don't go for clickbait. I think that, everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's what it is on YouTube here. We all are just sharing our opinions, and he's more than entitled to share his and say whatever he wants to say. I think that there's he tries to make things very cut and dry, and a lot of times they're not that cut and dry, because even within a single brand like General Motors, for example, many of them are sourced from different places. You have the Sonic built in South Korea or whatever, and then you have other stuff built in Mexico and other stuff built in America, and then you have stuff built in Canada, and then you have all these brands or GM, just even GM has parts coming from various different companies. And so, a transmission for one might come from Aisin, so it's a Japanese transmission, so maybe very reliable transmission. But then you have another one come from a German transmission manufacturer, or some that come from somewhere else. So all these cars are such a mishmash of, all kinds of parts. And so to definitively say this one brand is good or bad, to me, is foolish, because there's lots of little intricacies as far as why this car is bad or that car is bad. And that's why some manufacturers, one of their cars is really, really good and another one's not as good. And so it's just, there's very few things in life you can make a blanket statement about and be right. There's always exceptions to the rule. There's always, little things that, you're going to have to just kind of account for. And I don't know if he always does that, but I could say a whole lot more, but I'm going to plead the fifth on that one and not go more into that. But I think it's safe to say I don't watch Scotty Kilmer, to answer your question. I definitely make it a point to not watch Scotty Kilmer's stuff. Wild Frames, thank you so much for the super stick. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I see you have a couple here. I'm going to answer them. Oh, and you have another super chat, so thank you for all those. Let me see if I can make sure. He says, do you think car reviewers are afraid to make negative reviews? It's so rare and there is so much crap cars. It really depends on what you're looking for and what you think is crap. Because, personally, it's a matter of perspective for me. Like, if you look at stuff even from 10 years ago, how much better cars have gotten. Even like I just was talking about earlier, the Mustang. Just 10 or so years ago, up until the 2011 Mustangs, they had 300 horsepower in the V8, and that was acceptable performance to have a 300 horsepower V8 engine. And now what are we looking at? My Bullet in the garage has 480 horsepower with a naturally aspirated V8, and that just happened in the past 10 years. And it took less than that. They were up way up on horsepower in 2013, and continue to move the ball forward. And we're living in a golden age of performance. And as far as other cars, I don't know. There's very few cars that I think are truly horrible. It used to be, again, like 10 years ago, there was a lot of cars that were pretty junky. They were unreliable. They didn't drive good and all that kind of stuff. But nowadays, I don't, at least me personally, as far as negative reviews, I don't hold back. If something is crap, I say it is. If there's something that I'm like, this is not competitive, then it's not competitive. And I talked about this. I got a ton of heat on my Toyota Land Cruiser video, because I'm like, this thing's 90 grand and it has an interior from 20 years ago, like, not acceptable. And so a lot of people were really upset about that. The Land Cruiser community wanted to have me tar and feathered for that, but as far as, that's the way it was. It's just, it's not a nice interior. It's not even close to being worth $30,000, let alone 90. And so I'm not afraid to do negative stuff at all if it's fair. And I think most car companies, Toyota, wasn't upset about me saying that about the Land Cruiser, because it's fair. I look at the Land Cruiser interior and I look at even a Camry interior, which also isn't best in class, but like a Camry interior is like miles better than the Land Cruiser interior, as far as tech, luxury, features available, and the value there, and so, but as far as other cars out there, I mean, I'd love to know what cars you think are crap, but I honestly don't think there's anything that's really truly terrible. Like I have to really sit here and like think long and hard, like what is an actual like terrible car? And I can't even think of anything off the top of my head. Like smart cars were junk, but they've been gone for several years now. I did genuinely hate driving that, and it made no sense. But aside from that, I can't think of anything that stands out as being like really awful. But yeah, I'd love, if you have any ideas, I'd be more than happy to entertain them and discuss them more. But thank you so much for the super chats. And I'll keep an eye out if you have any follow-up. Greg, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, how exciting are you to get your hands on a CT5V Blackwing? Thoughts on what you've seen? P.S. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. As far as the Blackwing, I am super excited for that. I mean, if you guys watched my CTSV review from 4 years ago or whatever, oh, those things were amazing. And so having that with more power, with the nicer, handling and the nicer interior of the CT5, plus a manual, like if I had 85 grand, I would certainly be ordering one. That would be, even if I don't need a dad car, if I had 85 grand to blow, I would just order one just to have it. I think it's going to be a collectible as well. So honestly, I don't think you're going to lose much money buying one at 85 grand, to be totally honest. It might depreciate in the first few years, but that car will be collectible, mark my words. So yeah, if I could afford that, man, I'd be all over a Blackwing. That is the new like dream dad car for me. I love those things. Yeah, it's exciting stuff. All right, other questions here. Newt says, yeah, it's important because people go to watch reviews for honest opinions. A review without any negative criticism is worthless. I totally agree. And that's why I always just call things how I see it. Sometimes that gets me crap. Like even on the G80 review that I just did, the highway drive assist system just does not work well every single time I use it in every single Hyundai vehicle. Sometimes it's worse than others, but it's always just like back of the pack as far as how good it is. And like the guys over at the Straight Pipes, they have very good impressions with it. It works really well for them. And so even though I know that it's probably a really good system and everyone's going to give me crap for saying it's bad, I still say it's bad because in my experience, it was bad. And like, that's just how it is. And, I let the chips fall where they do. And, it is what it is. But, I think it's just, you got to be honest. That's the whole point of doing this. Otherwise, if it's just going to be a bunch of ads, I could just be an influencer for, random crap and just make money that way. But I want to give you guys honest feedback because I know many of you have messaged me and said, I bought this car because your review really helped me and gave me a lot of insight and stuff like that. And I think I am helping some people. And so I take that very seriously. And so I always want to be 100% honest, no matter what it does as far as the comments section and stuff. But Josiah, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, when do you anticipate a review for the 21 Santa Fe? What are your preliminary thoughts on it? Any news on the hybrid trim? So I'm guessing they'll probably, I don't even know when there's supposed to start showing up at dealers. I think it's going to be sometime this spring, right? I mean, you say Q1, so should be coming soon, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it. And I'm looking forward to reviewing it for sure because it is a pretty heavy redo, but keep in mind it is still the same platform as the old Santa Fe. So it's not going to drive much different, I don't think, aside from, like you said, the hybrid and stuff. And I am really excited to try out the hybrid, the plug-in hybrid, all that kind of stuff. I think will be great. So I'm looking forward to those. But my thoughts on it are that the Santa Fe still is, a really competitive vehicle in that segment. You get lots of room for the money. I love the 10-year warranty. I think Hyundai and Kia are putting out some of the most impressive cars these days as far as moving the ball forward. They're the first ones to put in the huge screens in that segment. They're the first ones to go for, pushing the boundaries and not just maintaining the status quo like so many of the others are happy doing. So I'm really excited for it. I don't know when I'll get one in. I'm still waiting on even some of the stuff that's already out. For example, I'm still waiting on a Sonata Inline, which a lot of others have already reviewed that. I'm still waiting on that. Still waiting on Veloster and dual clutch. A lot of others have already reviewed that. I am in Pittsburgh, so they probably don't want to send that one on, summer tires. So I'll wait till the spring for that. That just makes sense. But, I'm still waiting on a lot of that other stuff. So it might not be till the summer or something, even if it does come out here in the next month or two. Sometimes I'm a little bit on the slower end of this spectrum as far as getting stuff out there, because my press fleet office isn't one of the bigger ones, and so the guys that are in LA and Detroit and New York, they are the priority. They get way more stuff and get it a lot sooner. So I'm kind of lower on the totem pole. Tu Chang, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, so the electric Celica, what's your thoughts? I haven't heard about electric Celica. If that is a real thing or something that's coming, I haven't seen that yet, but that would be amazing if they did an electric Celica. That'd be really, really cool. But if you have any more info on it, definitely I'll try and keep an eye out for it in the comments here. Very interesting. Nick, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what do you know about the Dodge Inline 6 engine that's rumored? And do you think Inline 6 engines are making a huge comeback for all brands? I know I heard something a long time ago about their Inline 6s, but I have not heard anything recently. I think with Dodge, I think they're going to stick with the V6 for a while, not only because it just saves them a ton of money, but also because that motor is really reliable these days. And I mean, if you saw, Dodge is really rising the ranks in Consumer Reports. They're now, one of the more reliable brands. JD Power also ranks them very high for initial quality and stuff like that. Dodge is actually really reliable these days, even though everyone still has this preconceived idea that Dodge is crap and all this kind of stuff. They've been pretty reliable, and they're kind of following the Toyota formula of, hey, let's keep our old engines in stuff that are proven reliable. Let's keep the transmissions that are proven reliable. We have the Uconnect system, which is proven and reliable over the past 4 or 5 years, and they're seeing increased reliability as a result. So I don't know if they're going to want to mess with that too much with the new Inline 6. From everything I've heard, as far as performance stuff goes and things like that, it's all about electrification. It's going to be taking those existing motors, throwing the, at least the e-torque system, but most likely the 4xe system you see in the Wrangler plug-in hybrid, throwing that in everything. They're talking about putting it in the Gladiator this year. The Grand Cherokee is going to be getting it here in the new version. They're going to be doing all that kind of stuff. And so I think that's going to be the way forward. And there's even an interview with their one of their heads at Dodge who said that's how they're going to do performance going forward for Challenger, for Charger. They're like, the V8s and stuff, they're going to keep them around, but having supercharged 700 horsepower, things like that, they're like, we'll do 700 horsepower, but it's not going to be the same way as before, because the emissions regulations are going to get, keep getting stricter and stricter. So it'll be a Hellcat, which will maybe be a naturally aspirated V8 with a 200 horsepower electric motor on top of it to give you your 700 horsepower, something like that. So I don't know about the Inline 6 coming back. We'll have to wait and see on all that. I could be wrong, but I know a lot of companies are just investing in electrification stuff, and it's super expensive. And investing in engines whenever you have California talking about getting rid of stuff in 2035, other parts of the world. I know that Dodge isn't really a global brand, but all the other parts of the world talking about 2035 is the end date for new car sales with gas engines and stuff. And if that holds up, which a lot can change in 14 years, but if that holds up, these car companies, they're planning 10 years out. So if this is the law for 10 years from now, they're not going to dump billions of dollars developing an engine that then is going to have to get killed off after 10 years. So I don't know if an Inline 6 will come for Dodge unless they buy one from someone else and kind of do a shortcut there, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Kyle, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, since you reviewed the all-wheel drive Mazda 3 Turbo, do you think the 6-speed automatic holds it back? Is it worth considering since more cars use an 8-speed minimum? I don't think the 6-speed holds it back unless you like doing manual shifting. If you're going to leave a transmission in automatic mode, I think the 6-speed is totally sufficient because those engines are so torquey. Having 320 pound-feet of torque in that segment is unheard of, and you just ride that wave of torque, and you don't need to shift a million times because you have, so much power there that, you have, even though the gears aren't, super short, it still feels really fast, and it's really a good combo. I think they paired it up well. I know that it's kind of the cheaper route to go with, using an old transmission like that, but for them it works. And and stay tuned. I'll be talking more about that kind of stuff in my Mazda CX-30 Turbo review, which is coming out on Tuesday morning. So stay tuned for that. That's when the embargo drops, and you'll see everyone post their reviews of that then. But I do talk more about that then. But thank you so much for the super chat. Wild Frames, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, Land Cruiser is not about the interior trim. It's hard to judge focused cars. People don't understand them. Same can be said for supercars with crappy interiors, sometimes even the reviewers. your opinion. So yes, I mean, so that's why, like, even in my Land Cruiser review, I said, like, the interior in the interior review is not impressive. But whenever I, was doing the normal review on the Land Cruiser, I was like, yes, this interior isn't worth the money, but you're not paying 90 grand for the interior. You're paying 90 grand for the off-roading, the reliability, the V8, all that kind of stuff. And I understand that. And that's why they continue to sell, and they have a very loyal, dedicated fan base. And those people don't care about an interior. But again, going back to what I was talking about earlier with being a reviewer and having to compare stuff, I just, in my reviews, have to make people aware of the fact that for 90 grand, BMW, Mercedes, Audi will make you feel like you're in a rolling palace for the same exact money. And so it just depends on how much do you need that. And if you're into the Land Cruiser thing and you want to go rock crawling in your $90,000 luxury SUV, go for it. But clearly there's only a few hundred people out there a year that actually want to do that. So, that's that. But again, it's just calling it how I see it. It's like, you get this for 90 grand, or you get the rolling palaces of all the other 3-row, crossovers for 90 grand. And it's a totally different thing. It's not really an apples to apples comparison. But I, again, just have to compare it because the Land Cruiser doesn't really have any competitor. So it's like, well, if you want a Land Cruiser type thing, you have that, and you have the Sequoia, which is also Toyota. And then you really don't have much else. You have the Armada, but that doesn't really do anything nearly like that. It's just another body on frame V8, but you're very limited. So, that's why I kind of just put that out there. And that's why, like, what I said is, like, for the 90 grand, I would just have the Lexus, because you still get all the same attributes of the Land Cruiser, just maybe a little less ground clearance, maybe a little less off-road capability, but you still get all the other same things people love about the Land Cruiser, and you still get a very nice interior for that 90 grand. And that's why, like, I don't knock the LX, for its interior. I mean, yes, it still isn't cutting edge, and you can still get a way nicer thing than all the other competitors, but at least it makes a little more sense in the Lexus than it does in the Land Cruiser. But yeah, I know a lot of people that struck a nerve, and I get it. But like I said, it's just all about the comparison with reviews. Luco, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I see any Fiat product with 2.4 9-speed as bad. Yeah, I know a lot of people say that, but then there's another fan that watches the channel regularly, and he has a Chrysler 200 with that 2.4 and the 9-speed auto. I think he said he's got almost 200,000 miles on it, never had an issue. So again, making those blanket statements can be tricky because there's always an exception out there. And maybe he's just the one lucky guy that got the one reliable, 9-speed 2.4 combo. But, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of people that probably have decent luck with them. And, it's not like they're all always terrible. But anyway, and we have another super chat here from Fastline. He says, are you getting the 2021 Ford Bronco as a press vehicle? I'm hoping to. They have not committed to sending one yet, but they haven't scheduled anyone in it because they're not, arriving until the summertime. And then again, because I'm lower on the totem pole, once everyone else gets it that's way bigger than I am, then I'll finally get it. So I'm guessing I will probably get it sometime in the fall would be my safe bet on that. So we'll have to see, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting it. I'm sure I will eventually get it as a press vehicle, and should be a lot of fun. Very interesting. Newt says it's surprising I'm not drinking a bubbly, or I'm drinking a bubbly instead of a Coke. Yeah, sometimes the Coke, it's like, I don't know about you guys, but like dries out your mouth. Whenever I'm talking a mile a minute for 2 hours straight, I just got to stay hydrated with the water instead. So Newt Media, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, thoughts on the Porsche Taycan, Taycan lineup. So the Taycan, I like it. I have not driven it, so I have no clue, what it's like. I've heard good things about it. And I think they look cool. I think they could have made it a little bit bigger as far as, making it a good four-door sedan, but it seems like it does okay with its back seat, but it's just merely sufficient instead of being, a little bit more spacious. But I'd love to try one someday. Porsche still does not send me press vehicles. So I'm left to wonder about most Porsche models. I have no clue how any of them drive aside from the GT4 Cayman, thanks to Blackout Tinting for letting me drive theirs. And I'll be reviewing a Cayman GTS 4.0 thanks to my buddy that just got one. I'll be doing that hopefully this spring. But other than that, all the other models are a complete mystery to me. I have no clue how they drive, but I'd love to try them out someday. But thank you again for the super chat, Zach. Tu Chang, thank you so much for another super chat. He said he was referring to the Instagram DM. So yeah, he DM'd me about a Celica. I don't remember ever seeing any actual stuff about an electric Celica, though. I would love to see it, and it's fun speculation. But I don't know, I think Toyota's probably going to have to do some type of, there's the thing they're doing with Subaru where they're both going to get an electric SUV that's going to be like Forester and RAV4 sized. That's going to be the first electric thing I think Toyota's going to do. And then beyond that, who knows? Maybe they would do some type of electric sports car or something that would be fun for sure. But and then he's also asking if you could afford it, would you do a long-term? Not sure, a long-term car. If you mean like I know it's a lot of other magazines and stuff do like a year-long review on something. That I could potentially write off, but I don't really do that kind of stuff. I think that kind of stuff, it's very insightful, but it's also one of those things where you have to pick like one car and then spend the entire year focusing on it. And I think I'd rather just kind of do the shorter reviews, spend a week with a car, and kind of, give my quicker reviews that way and have a lot more appeal and be able to, reach out to the most amount of people possible by, doing regular reviews. So that's why I don't do long-term stuff. Would be fun. But honestly, what I've noticed is like, you really get, in my opinion, you get about 75 to 80% of what a car is like in the first 20 minutes of driving. And then beyond that, that's why I have my week-long loans. If there's any little thing that's annoying after, a couple of days or something, that kind of stuff sometimes will come up. You notice rattles and creaks and things like that more often. But aside from that, I really, I know that like with the magazines, you go into maintenance costs and things like that and reliability over a year-long loan, but most cars in their first year being brand new are going to be totally fine. You're not going to have a bunch of big issues usually. So to me, I don't see the value in it as much, but it is interesting to read, whenever Car and Driver and stuff does their long-term stuff. They're actually doing a long-term test. They just started on a TLX, and I'm very curious to see how that does. Cause like I said, I'm a big fan of the TLX. Greg says, speaking of press cars, will you get a Rivian RT1 or RS1 as a press vehicle when it's available this summer? Well, thank you again for the super chat. The Rivian, I don't know, because they're a brand new company. I don't have any contacts with their PR department or anything like that. So, if they're doing press vehicles, that would be something I'd be totally up for. It's kind of, I think a lot of those companies, they don't, unless you're a really big company, one of the huge mainstream things or something, then you'll, maybe get a press car. Like Tesla. Like they don't do press cars. They don't loan out Teslas to people, unless you're the New York Times or something huge like that, I guess. But so I don't know if Rivian's going to do normal, press fleet stuff. If they do, I don't know about it yet, but I'd love to try one out for sure. That would be very, very cool. Yeah, I think that's one of the electric companies that will actually make it and could actually make a dent in Tesla a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. Mr. Me, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what's your dream car if money was not a problem? Well, there's a long list of cars that I would buy if I ever won the lottery or something like that. But the number one car, if I could only have one of them, would be a Ferrari 812 GTS. I love that thing. That naturally aspirated V12 is amazing sounding. And then now having it with the roof off, perfection, absolute perfection. That I can't think of a more glorious driving experience, at least that I can imagine. I mean, I've not driven one, so I have no clue, but I think it would be pretty amazing. And so that's my ultimate dream car. If I needed a dream car that I could drive for any purpose, then it would be a Ferrari GTC4 Lusso, because you have the all-wheel drive, you have the back seats, you have a hatch, and you still have that amazing V12. So that'd be my dream garage, would be those two side by side. That would be, even if I could just have those two and that's it. Totally perfect. Would never need anything more. Wild, thank you so much for another super chat. He said, fun question, 2.0 turbo or V6 non-turbo? That depends on the application. I think, for example, in a V6 family crossover, makes more sense than something like that. It's something you're towing. 2.0 turbos can be fun, depending on the application and what you're doing with the engine and stuff and how you tune it. Generally, though, V6s sound better, and I don't mind revving out an engine. So I think for me, if I had to do a blanket statement, I would say V6. I'd probably prefer, non-turbo V6 over a turbo 4. But again, it really does come down to the situation. And Newt also says thoughts on these coupe SUVs that have been popping up. I'm not a fan of them. I've never been a fan of them. Even when the original X6 back in the day, I thought was kind of weird looking. Yeah, not a fan of the coupe SUVs. I just think if you're buying an SUV, don't you want the most cargo space possible? If not, then just go buy a sedan. So it seems like to me the coupe SUVs are like sedans for people who don't want to bend over to get into a car. And so you have the high seating position, but none of the practicality. And to me, that's just kind of silly. So of the long list of vehicles that are available out there, I think coupe SUVs have to be on the very bottom of my list as far as what I would ever buy myself. They still make zero sense to me. Robert, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, hi, Matt, thoughts on the T-Rex? Would you buy one? I'm not a truck guy. I don't need a truck. I have no use for a truck. I would not appreciate a truck's capabilities. So for me, I would never buy one. But if I were to buy a truck, T-Rex all day long would, yes, be 100% my pick. It's the coolest thing out there. It has the nicest Ram interior that's, best in class, in my opinion. I love the Ram looks in general. I think it's the best looking of all the trucks. And then you put my beloved Hellcat motor in it, sold. So if I were to get a truck and I could afford one, T-Rex all day long. I will be actually getting one as a press vehicle in March. I know everyone else has already reviewed it, but I'm going to finally have one in March. So I'll be able to test it out for myself. But I'm really excited for it, but I think they're super awesome. Dodge just knocked it out of the park, and Ford still is going to be waiting another year to reveal their V8 powered truck. So in the meantime, Ram will continue to just be awesome and continue to be the best. I think they're on a great roll at Dodge and Jeep and all that. Mr. Meat, thank you so much for another super chat. He said 10 best cars that you will love to own. So I guess I could actually just go through my lottery list of my 10 favorite cars, because I have it actually on a list on my phone that I frequently tweak if I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go for this version instead of that version, because I'm just a dreamer that loves just dreaming about having a dream car garage and stuff. So if I were to get 10 cars on a lottery list, I would keep my Bullet Mustang, because I still am going to love that thing even if I had unlimited money. I would love to have an Aston Martin Vantage, the new one with the manual. I'd love to have an Aston Martin DPS Superleggera Volante, because that's a V12 with the roof off. Perfection. Plus those cars are drop dead gorgeous. Bentley Continental GT V8, I think it'd be a great all around kind of super comfy, luxurious daily driver. So that would be another one. So that's 3. GTC4 Lusso, like I said, is 4. 812 GTS is 5. I'd still love an F-Type. So if money were no object, it'd be an F-Type SVR convertible. So that's 6. 7 would be Porsche 911 Speedster. I think those are amazing because, again, if you're noticing a theme here, convertibles with amazing sounds. The 911 Speedster, you get the glorious GT3 motor with no roof. Sign me up. So that's number 7. And then number 8 would be a 2006 or 7 Aston Martin DBS, because that is a manual transmission with the V12. Plus, that's the car from Casino Royale, which is my favorite Bond movie. And so that kind of is an iconic car, kind of another movie car thing, kind of like the Bullet. I have a thing for movie cars. So that would be number 8. And then 9 would be the CT5V Blackwing would probably be another one, just for a 4-door car for whenever I needed to drive other people around. And then the 10th one, I think, well, if we're factoring in Beth, because her one of her dream cars would be a Bentley Bentayga. So that would probably, I guess, be car number 10. I'd be getting her a Bentayga in, again, some lottery dream scenarios. So that would probably be my top 10 there. And there's other cars that I would want as well, a bunch of classics I'd love to have and stuff. But that's my dreamer list of cars if I had unlimited money someday. Newt says the Speedster is incredible. It was so cool to see one in person. I have never seen one in person. I'm jealous. It's awesome. I'm sure it sounded amazing, but yeah, I would love to have one of those. All right. So we have, Jason says, he saw a meme about a Hellcat Pacifica, and I see someone else talking about Hellcat minivans. Yeah, that would be so cool. I'm sure it would never fit, but it would be super fun if they ever did that. Nick, thank you so much for a super chat here. He says, RB26, 2JZ, or any BMW Inline 6, which one? It's got to be the 2JZ. It's just, bulletproof, reliable, can make tons of power, sounds super good, and it's just a legendary sound that, again, kind of just goes back to the original Fast and Furious movie, one of the first movies that got me into cars. That 2JZ Supra, that's another car we could add to the dream car list. I would love to have a few of the Fast and Furious movie cars or clones of them, including the Supra and the Eclipse. I'd love to have those, but 2JZ for sure has got to be the one. The other ones are fantastic as well that you mentioned there, but 2JZ I think is the king for me. All right, Sam says, thoughts on the Mitsubishi Outlander Sport. I have never driven one. My future brother-in-law actually is now a salesman at a Mitsubishi dealership, and he really seems to like it, but he sells them, so maybe there's a little bit of bias there. But I might be able to try one here, these new versions. The thing is, though, I've reviewed Mitsubishis in the past, and if it's not an Evo or an Eclipse, nobody cares on the channel, at least. I did the Outlander plug-in hybrid. No one cared. And I think I did one or two others back in the day that didn't really go very far. So, I have to be much smarter about what I review these days because there's way more competition than there used to be 5 years ago when I could review anything and get decent views. So now it's really trying to be more picky about what I review because, again, it's tougher and tougher to get views these days than it used to be. Other questions here. We have ATX Trend says, is Mazda worth buying over a Hyundai or Kia? If you don't care about the warranty, I think Mazda is a great choice. They're still one of the most reliable brands, so you hopefully won't need the warranty. And I think Mazda is doing fantastic stuff these days. I think most of their interiors are basically best in class as long as you're okay with dealing with a controller. That's the one thing. If you want a touchscreen, you're out of luck with the Mazdas. Aside from that, if you're not worried about that, just the nicest leathers for the segment. Everything feels very quality. Everything drives very nicely. I really love Mazdas. And if I needed an affordable little crossover in the mainstream segment, I still think I'd probably go for a CX-5. They're just really fantastic. I think everything Mazda makes is really, really good. And you will hear again my thoughts on the CX-30, Turbo on Tuesday morning. I had one of those for a weekend. And I cannot say anything more about that because it's under embargo, but stay tuned for that for sure. Samuel, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, every car guy has a list like that on their phone. I hope so. I hope I'm not the only one. That'd be great. I do have that list. I'm glad to hear that you do as well. I'm not the only crazy one, but I got a long list ready to go. It was fun watching the Powerballs and the Mega Millions go up to, like $1 billion or whatever. It was very exciting. Not that you even need, a tenth of that money to buy all those cars, but it's always fun to dream. I'm like you guys as well, just hoping to someday have money for my supercars and stuff like that. But in the meantime, they're just pipe dreams. Aiden says, Audi Q8 or Range Rover Sport? I have never driven either of those two, so I have no clue. But, I think the Audi's probably a little bit more reliable than the Range Rover, but they have their perks. Of course, the Range Rover is going to be a lot more capable off-road than the Q8 is. So they're kind of a little bit different with their focus, but they both seem really nice. I'm not crazy about either of them, honestly. If I were to go for something in that segment, there's a bunch of stuff, but honestly, so this is another vehicle that is under embargo until next week. Is the Escalade. So the new Escalade, for the same money, you get a lot of stuff. It's really impressive. And the reason why the Escalade, I know people have already done reviews on the new Escalade, but it's under embargo because I had one with Super Cruise, which is a new thing. And so that's under embargo until Tuesday as well. Although my video won't be coming till Wednesday because I'm leaving Tuesday for the Mazda video since there's two embargoes at the same time, basically. But Escalade is fantastic as well. Super cool. I was very surprised by the Escalade. I will just leave it at that, I guess, for now, because I don't want to give too much away with the embargo and everything. But Escalade is where it's at. They are super cool. And I've never wanted an Escalade before in my life. But these new ones, they're impressive. All right. Other questions here. Brian, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, manual dad car pick, GTI, GLI, Accord, Elantra N. Well, if you're asking for yourself, it really comes down to what your preferences are, what you're looking for. I'm assuming you want a manual since all those are offered with a manual. If you're not looking for a manual, then that will kind of change things a little bit. Between those four, though, it's really hard to say with the Elantra N because that hasn't come out yet. But I think the Elantra N is going to be the best performer. I think the new Elantra interior is very impressive. If you watch the regular Elantra review that I did, the Elantra is pretty nice. I mean, yes, it's a little cheap feeling still in some places, but the tech is top notch. And based on how good the Veloster N is, if the Elantra N is even half as good as the Veloster, I would probably pick the Elantra as long as, just because the Elantra, you get a 10-year warranty, it's more reliable. You get the limited slip diff, which you don't get in the Accord. So the Accord is like a one-wheel peel machine sometimes, from what I've heard. I've not driven the 2.0 with a manual, but I have with the automatic. And that thing did like to spin the tires, which can be fun, but it's not very fast. And so GLI handling was a little sloppier than I would like. GTI handling was fantastic, but it's less practical because the hatch is pretty tiny compared to the normal trunks you get in all those sedans. So I honestly think it's less practical than the sedans are. Unless you fold those seats down. But for a dad car, you can't fold those seats down. So, I think for me, it would be the Elantra N without ever driving it. I have to wait. Hopefully, I'll get to review one of those this year and know for sure. But that would probably be the one I would go for. Robert says, thanks again, Matt, for answering my super chat. Coming from a 13 Mercedes GL 450, what SUV would you recommend for an upgrade? Depends on your budget and what you're looking for. But if you're looking for something similar to your GL, the new GLS is fantastic. If you're shopping in that kind of price range, they seem very impressive. I've not driven it, but I've sat in it and able to check it out and stuff. And if it drives like the GLE does, which I did review, then I'm sure it'll be very good. And the GLE also, if you don't need as much space as the GLS has, the GLE is fantastic, super luxurious. So nice, drives really well. It's really strong, even with just that straight six engine with the turbo. I really like the GLE. That was another video that no one watched. No one cares about the GLE, at least on my channel. But it's a really good SUV if you're looking at that luxury SUV segment, and well worth checking out. I think I would take it over an X5, at least the new ones. I would take it over a Q5 for sure. I'd take it over a Q7 even. I think GLE is one of the nicest ones out there. But Brian's asking for what would my pick be, manual only. I would go Elantra N, to circle back to your original question. And thank you again for the super chat, Brian. Tech Defender says Civic Type R, I'm guessing as a dad car. That is another very good choice for a dad car, except it's a little too in your face with the styling for me. If they did a version without a spoiler, I could probably be into that, but those seats are also really aggressive. Getting in and out of those seats every day, it's fine, but it's just a little much for what I would probably want. I like stuff that's a little more on the luxurious side that still has the sportiness, So we'll have to see what they do with the new Type R, though. I'm excited to see this next-gen Civic. Looks like it's going to kind of have the looks be toned down a little bit, and I'm really excited for it. So we'll have to see about, all that. But yeah. All right. Bert, thank you for joining the super chat here. He says, based on your recent Newsweek video, CT4V Blackwing or C8 Corvette, both start around 60 grand. That is a very interesting comparison. Obviously it comes down to, whether or not you're ever going to use a back seat. If you're not, I would probably go C8 still, because it's going to be, probably faster. It's way more fun. I'm sure the CT4V is going to be amazing with the Blackwing motor. And, the manual and stuff is really cool. And if you're a manual fan, obviously that's going to be the only choice, is that, because the C8, you can't get it. But if you don't care about the transmission and you don't care about the back seat, I would still go for C8. Although admittedly, a CT4V Blackwing at 60 grand is going to have a lot more equipment than a base C8 will have, I think. So whenever you're talking about comparably equipped vehicles, it'll probably turn out that the C8 is going to be a little bit more expensive. So that's something to consider as well. But CT4V Blackwing should be fantastic as well. I love the ATS-V. So it's going to be probably very similar to that in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's another fantastic vehicle. Cadillac, they are knocking it out of the park with their newest stuff. Like I said, Escalade. Wait to see all my ranting and raving about that this week. CT4V and CT5V Blackwings are going to be amazing. Vishal, thank you so much for the question. He says, hey, Matt, just wanted to share that my parents bought a 2021 Highlander XLE after I showed them your review. Keep up the great videos. That's awesome. I'm glad it helped them out, and hopefully they're continuing to enjoy it. But that's awesome. Thanks for letting me know that. And yeah, Highlander is a very solid pick. And it's awesome to have, I don't know if they got the hybrid or not, but it's great that Toyota offers that since no one else does a hybrid in that segment, really. And yeah, congrats to them. Zachary Jones says, what are your thoughts on the 2016 Honda Accord V6 Coupe 6-speed manual transmission? Because it's a bargain for what you get in terms of performance. It does seem to be a really cool combo. I did do the manual V6 Accord Coupe, but it was an older one. I think it was a 2013 or something. I did have someone that offered me a 2016 Accord V6 Coupe with the manual that I'm hoping to review once COVID has chilled out. So I'm hoping we'll see how the summer goes, with everything. But I'm hoping maybe by the end of this summer or into the fall to start getting back to privately owned car reviews and filming some of the stuff that you guys have offered me, because I got a long list of cars now that people have been patiently waiting for over a year for me to review their cars. Some people have been waiting years because they're a little bit further away. So I'm hoping to start working on some of those here at some point this year. Because I think it does seem like it's a very promising combo, and I was really impressed with the older ones too. So yeah, I'd love to try one of those out for sure. Anne says, hi Matt, I'm looking at a 2019 C43 Type S or IS 350. So between those three, I'm guessing, so you're talking about 2019, so I'm guessing you're looking at lightly used stuff for the Mercedes. I think I would definitely either go for a Mercedes or Type S. Obviously Type S, if you're talking about the brand new one, none of us have driven it yet, so I'm not sure how that will be. It sounds very promising. I think between those three, again, without driving the Type S, I would probably go Type S because it's going to be a lot nicer than the IS 350. It's going to be way faster than the IS 350. The interior is so nice in those new TLXs, and it's going to be more reliable and less of a reliability nightmare than the C43 could be down the road. Now, 2019, still very new. You're probably not going to have issues for several years. But if you are someone who buys a vehicle and plans to keep it for a long time, the C43 can get more expensive with the maintenance and even just stuff like oil changes and things like that. I mean, even I think the yearly service on Beth's Mercedes C300, I think that's like $400 just for its like yearly oil change and other minor little things they do. It's pricey. So, that's one of the things you do have to take into account with the German luxury stuff is it's going to be a lot more expensive for maintenance and service and stuff and parts whenever they break down the road. So I would go Type S between the three. But again, it really does come down to what you're looking for and stuff too, because I think the C43 is probably going to be the most dynamic vehicle of the bunch as far as having the snappiest transmission, probably the best sounding engine as well. There's are some redeeming qualities of C43. Just you have to also just be prepared for the downsides as well of that one. And I think the Type S will probably have less downsides. But again, we'll have to wait till those actually are out there driving around. Clint, thank you so much for the question. He says, hey, Matt, traveling to Pennsylvania for the first time this fall, any must-see places? Well, it depends on where you're, traveling in PA, because it's a pretty big state, and it's pretty different between Pittsburgh and like Philadelphia, for example, and even stuff in the middle. So yeah, depending on where you're going to be, there's a lot of fun stuff in PA. I'm not the best as far as being a tour guide because I'm kind of biased towards all the Pittsburgh stuff because that's what I know the most and what I grew up around and stuff. But I think that the stuff that I think would be cool to see if you are going to be going somewhere in like central PA is Hershey Park and Hershey, the actual factory where they make candy is in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is pretty cool to just kind of check out. That's a fun little day trip thing. Yeah, Rye also says get a cheesesteak in Philly. That's also a must-do thing. If you're into baseball, I think that going to see a game at PNC Park in Pittsburgh here is also worth doing. It's not just even me, but I mean, a lot of baseball teams really love playing in PNC Park because it's a beautiful stadium. It's right on the water. It's a really relaxing evening. And even though the Pirates are usually pretty terrible, so you shouldn't go to actually see a good baseball game half the time, it's just a nice, relaxing evening. You're taking in the beautiful sights. And I don't know, I personally love baseball games. Maybe you don't, but I think that's also a really fun thing. And I mean, even like the New York Yankees were quoted as saying they love playing at PNC Park because it's just a really nice experience. So, yeah, that would be another thing to do. There's a lot of other cool stuff. Like while you're in Pittsburgh, I'd get a Primanti sandwich because that's pretty unique. It's a sandwich. It's like a deli sandwich, but it has French fries and coleslaw on the sandwich. And they did that because truckers and stuff back in the day could only drive one-handed. They didn't want to mess with a bunch of other little things in their to-go containers. So they just had everything on the sandwich and, just bit into it. And that was it. So that's kind of a fun little thing to try. And yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, seeing the old Heinz factory where ketchup got its start is kind of a cool thing to see. Also here in Pittsburgh, there's river cruise type things you can do on this something called the Gateway Clipper, where just kind of doing a little cruise on the rivers and stuff. That's always nice. So there's lots of things like that, and there's also, of course, other things outside of Pittsburgh and various things all over the place that are noteworthy and impressive. But that's kind of all the stuff off the top of my head that I can think of. But there's lots of cool stuff. I'm just terrible at recommending stuff like that because I'm usually not hosting people that are unfamiliar with Pittsburgh. So it's not something I get too much practice with. Chris, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hi, Matt. What are your thoughts on a Lexus LFA? Would you ever like to own one? Been a fan of your channel since your BRZ days. Love the content. Thanks for being a fan for so long. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the super chat. The LFA, I think, is amazing. I actually had a friend back when I had my BRZ that had an LFA. I never got to ride in it or drive it, but got to hang out with it and follow behind her while she was driving it and stuff. It was very, very cool. They sound so good. I think that is just probably one of the greatest cars in Toyota and Lexus history for sure. And I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that ever again, at least from them. So it's a very special car and very much a collectible, I think. I would like to own one if I had tons of money. I wouldn't mind adding it to the collection because, again, I do love anything that sounds amazing. So that would probably be something worth owning for sure. But yeah, it's a great car. And yeah, thanks again for all the support. Yeah, Newt also says Mount Washington is a great view. It is a very unique thing. There's a lot of places that have cool views, but Mount Washington is kind of unique where in Pittsburgh, you can, it's right basically in the city. You go up this super steep hill and you can see an amazing view of the entire city, the rivers and stuff. It's a really cool place. Everyone proposes to their girlfriends up there and stuff like that. It's a very, very cool spot. And also another little thing while I'm speaking about high places in Pittsburgh, Rialto Street is actually, I think, one of the steepest hills in the world as far as paved surfaces go. I think it's one of the steepest streets. And actually, several years back, Audi did a commercial on Rialto Street where they dumped a bunch of snow on it and they started at the bottom and actually climbed it to show how good the Quattro all-wheel drive system was. And it's a very, very steep hill. And so that's something that, again, you won't be able to get anywhere else. It's even steeper than San Francisco and stuff like that. It's pretty wild. So that would be a fun thing. Just make sure that if you're going in a car, make sure you have a car with very good brakes if you're going down it. Because it's pretty wild. And I would not recommend going down it or up it if it's wet or snowy for sure. So yeah, and that's actually something a long time ago I had an idea of like doing kind of like local cool stuff and kind of giving people like a tour of random stuff in Pittsburgh and what it's like, stuff like that. I think would be kind of cool to show you guys while I'm driving around the Bullet and stuff. So maybe someday. Oh, apparently Beth corrected me. It's the steepest hill in Pittsburgh, but maybe it's not the steepest. I thought I remember seeing it's one of the steepest, at least in the country or something, but I could be totally wrong on that. So you can do your own research, I guess, and see. So he said, going to Central PA, so we'll add that to the list. Yeah, Hershey is definitely awesome. And actually, if you are a fan of good driving roads and you're going to be in Central PA, if you do go to Hershey, there is the Hotel Hershey, which is actually where I film some of my reviews whenever I'm meeting up with people on the other side of the state and stuff. We usually meet halfway at the Hotel Hershey. Very cool hotel to stay at, too, if you have the money to stay there. It's expensive. But anyway, right off of that, if you look on Google Maps, like if you leave Hotel Hershey, there is a fantastic set of curvy roads. Street Speed 717's featured them in the past as well, but I do a bunch of my reviews on those roads when I'm in that area because it's a bunch of super windy, awesome, fun roads. And so definitely worth heading on that if you're going to be in a fun car. So, and yeah, Jazz chimed in. Elliott Park has a great view of the city as well. Yeah, lots of good vantage points. Canton Avenue is the second steepest road in America. Interesting. Okay, so now I'm learning from you guys. So thanks for I don't know if I've known Canton Avenue unless I'm going to get confused. But yeah, I'll have to check that one out. That's pretty wild. So thanks for the insight on that, guys. So Rye also says ND2 Miata soft top or RF. Does the RF affect / reduce the fun handling? To me, I think it does because they actually said they changed the suspension tune in the RF version to account for the extra weight. And it still is most of the same fun, but I think that the soft top feels a little lighter and a little more athletic. And obviously you're going to have a lot less weight, higher up like you do with the RF version. So I think, yes, there are a little bit of a compromise there that you have to deal with, a few compromises, but it just comes down to what you need. If you're going to be driving with the roof up most of the time, the RF probably makes more sense. But personally, if you're going to go Miata, I still recommend going for the soft top. I think that's the best way to go about it. And if you're not looking for a convertible, then I would say to just go for the new BRZ. It sounds like that's going to be fantastic and very similar with power and stuff like that. So that would probably be, the way I'd go for that. So we have Bert is asking, classic muscle car or modern classic? Example, 1966 Chevelle SS 396 or 2020 Challenger Scat Pack wide body. We are currently contemplating both genres as a new housewarming gift to ourselves. Well, congrats on the new house. That's an awesome housewarming gift. It really comes down to what your preferences are. Obviously, they are going to drive completely differently. And, most of it honestly also comes down to what you enjoy about those experiences. If you just want something to slowly cruise around in, or you like that raw experience, obviously it's a lot of fun. Like I did all those old Mopars about a year ago or so that were amazing. I did the 1970 Challenger. I did the 68 Roadrunner. I did the, I think it was a 67 Roadrunner, 68, what was it? The Scat Pack Super B. I did a bunch of those last year. They're a lot of fun. Personally, I would go for the newer stuff because I like the luxurious stuff. I like the extra safety. I like, all those types of things. And so for me, I would go for the new one. Not that the new Challenger is really great with its crash standards compared to all the other new stuff these days. You don't want to be in a small overlap crash in a Challenger. It's not a pretty sight. But, if you don't care about that much, the Challenger is still a great pick. And I think I would go for the newer ones. They're faster. They're more reliable. You don't have any mechanical issues you got to worry about, anything you need to tweak with carburetors or anything like that, But if you enjoy that more hands-on raw experience, then obviously there's nothing like the old stuff. So really comes down to what your preferences are there. Riley asks, what's your opinion on the Apple Kia car thing that's in the talks? I don't know. It's going to be kind of interesting. It's all still so up in the air. So as far as what it will actually materialize as, it remains to be seen, whether it's just Apple putting their badge on a Kia, vehicle with their new electric platform, if it's just going to be a badge engineering thing, or if it's really going to be just using the platform and everything else will be totally Apple, then that could be pretty wild. I would just say prepare for it to probably cost double what the Kia costs, just because that's Apple's way of, charging premiums for stuff just because it's Apple. So I wouldn't expect it to be affordable for sure. But also Apple did say they want to have capacity to produce 100,000 of them a year, which is really a high goal. So if they want to sell 100,000 of them, they got to make it somewhat affordable. So we'll have to see, how that all plays out, but could be a lot of fun. Just because Apple, I know they haven't been the forefront of innovation. They're kind of just copying what everyone else is doing. They see what Android does and they do the same thing, maybe slightly better depending on your opinion. Like a year or two later, but the Apple Card could be something that's kind of revolutionary, and they were the first ones to come out with a fully touchscreen smartphone 14 years ago, and now everyone else is doing the same thing. So Apple could be on the verge of one of those aha moments again, where they flip the car industry on its head in some unique way that we don't know about yet. Or it could just be them cashing in on, the badge and just saying, hey, look, I have an Apple car and nothing more. So, we'll have to see what ends up happening with that, but I'm optimistic. It could be pretty cool. Yeah, Bert says, interesting crash info. I was unaware. I had a 1968 Mustang J-Code in high school. For what it's worth, ran 11.71 at 121. I do miss the smell of carburetors and a heavy cam. If that's the case, then I would go for the old stuff. The old stuff will also be a better investment in the short term because those things are going to probably only appreciate and hold their value, whereas the brand new Dodge stuff will depreciate, for a while. I think eventually they'll be collectibles too, but we're talking 10, 15, 20 years from now before they start, going up in value, I would guess. But, I think in that case, you'll probably be more of a fan for the old thing. That's what I would probably recommend for you, especially if you have good memories with the old stuff back in the day. That would be my pick, I think, for you. All right, other questions here. Fastline says, is the Apple car going to be like a second Tesla? Could be, but maybe they'll kind of do the same kind of thing Tesla did. We'll have to see, that could be very interesting if the two of them are kind of neck and neck. Could really evolve the EV game pretty quickly. Samuel says, hey, Matt, do you think it's a good idea to get a Mustang GT used or new in terms of value? And are the new Mustangs reliable? We'll opt for a manual transmission too. I think it's a good idea to get one. As far as used or new, I think if you don't need the brand new thing, I think you can definitely save yourself a good bit of money buying a used one. It's 1 or 2 years old. And they're pretty reliable. I know, back when the 2018s first came out, there were some people that were saying that, they're having ticking issues and cylinder scoring issues and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of one nice thing is with those, if you get something that's, a little more used, then at that point, whether the engine's sketchy or not, and all those types of issues are already worked out by the first owner. So you're probably a little bit safer maybe going for a used one. And I would recommend them. I think they're fantastic. They're a lot of fun. Some people like to complain about the manual transmissions in them. I don't have any issues with it. I mean, if you're really going to be banging on the gears hard and drag racing it every weekend and stuff, maybe, you might have a few issues with it, but, it seems like they're pretty durable. Although honestly, if you're going to go for, any kind of racing, you're better off with a 10-speed automatic. But the manual, I think, is a lot of fun. They sound fantastic. I would also recommend going for a 2019 or newer if you're interested in the active exhaust. I think that is one of the best features of these new Mustangs. I love it in my Bullet, having it be nice and quiet if I want it, or having it super loud if I want it at the flip of a switch. It's amazing. Same thing goes for the magnetized suspension. Being able to, soften it up or firm it up, the flip of a switch is amazing. So I love them. So I would go for maybe like a 2019 with a bunch of options on it if that's kind of where you're shopping money wise. But even, the 2015s, 2016s, a lot are great as well. I think if you do go for one that's older like that, I would avoid the 2015s because that's the first year. And also it's the only year that has the crappier infotainment system. Once you go to the 2016s and newer, you can do Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and all that kind of stuff, which, is a little bit nicer to have. So I would go 16 or newer. But yeah, I think they're great cars. Chris asked, when was the last time you did any background work in film/TV? Still pursuing it? No, haven't been pursuing it the past few years. I've just been way too busy with the channel to be able to do that, unfortunately. I do miss it if you watched that extra video several years ago. Or actually, I guess that was just last year I did that extra video. But it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I have not done anything extra work related since, I think, 2014 or 2015. Was the last. I think it was 2014 was probably the last time I did anything like that. So it's a lot of fun. I hope to get back into it someday, but since I'll be a dad here soon and stuff, it'll probably be even harder to have free time than it is currently. So not sure if I'll ever get back into it, but I would love to do it. I'm still on the mailing list for the casting agency. Whenever they need extras, I'm always still checking out those emails to see if there's ever any like high paying commercial that needs extras or something like that. But haven't done anything yet, but maybe someday, because I would love to get back on a movie set. It's so much fun. There's something coming to the Pittsburgh area here, I think in the next month or so. It had some pretty cool actor in it, but I can't remember who it is. But yeah, it's always fun. I really wanted to be an extra in something historical in Pittsburgh, because like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I just filmed about a year ago here in Pittsburgh. So Chadwick Boseman was in Pittsburgh before he passed away, sadly last year. It's really cool to just know there's these kind of celebrities hanging around the area and stuff. It's always awesome. But yeah, so yeah, it's been a long time, but I'd love to get back into that stuff here sometime in the future. We'll have to see. All right, and Lucky Studio 13 says, been following Matt's channel since his Mini Cooper BRZ days. How has he not aged a single day? What's the secrets to life, and what's the diet, Matt? Missed all the car meet videos you used to do. Well, thanks for all the support over the years. I don't know. I mean, I'm flattered you don't think I've aged. I feel like I might have, especially these days with this long COVID hair. I haven't been able to get a haircut. So, I mean, my hair I don't think I've had hair this long since I was like 5 years old. I've just, I don't know. There's nothing special that I do. I eat, usually pretty crappy food. Don't do anything special. I used to work out, but I don't even have time to really do that much anymore. So, just living life. Maybe it's all the accelerations. Keeps me young. All the giggles and all the accelerations and the G-forces. Maybe that's the key. I don't know. But thanks for all the support. And yeah, the car meet videos were a lot of fun to do. maybe once COVID's done, that'll be something I can get back to doing. But the cars and coffee videos, they didn't do great the past year or so that I did them. People just didn't seem to be as interested in them anymore. So, it was fun to do, but I don't know if I'm going to do those anymore. I like kind of just going to cars and coffee and just enjoying it instead of having to film stuff. Newt Media says they filmed some movie in Sewickley last year. Not sure which one. Looked like a holiday movie. Oh yeah, the holiday one. Who did that have in it? It had the girl from Twilight that I can't remember her name right now, but she was in town. There was a few others. And also there was the I'm Your Woman movie that was filmed here, which had Rachel Brosnahan from Mrs. Maisel, which I love that show. Kristen Stewart, Beth texted me. That's who was in town for that holiday movie. But yeah, I'm Your Woman was filmed in Pittsburgh. That was also really cool. I just watched that when I was on Amazon Prime. It was really, or maybe it was Netflix for that, but another really fun movie filmed in the area. I don't know if they filmed in Sewickley, but I thought they filmed near Sewickley for some of that. But yeah, Sewickley's a great place. All right, so Lucky Studio said, might it be the Coke and soda water? Yeah, maybe. I don't know what it is. Beth joked and said it's the stress that keeps me young, which could be the case too. It's the long hours of editing and filming and never having much free time. Maybe that's what keeps me young. Probably not. But all right. Riley says, have you ever thought about going to Mustang Week down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina? I did want to go down there a few years ago, but recently, in the past couple of years, I know like the cops shut it down, and it gets a little too rowdy for my liking. It's also the same reason why I avoid H2OI and all those things in Ocean City, like the plague. It's just not my scene. It's just, I don't know. I'm not into just like doing burnouts, in public places with crowds and hitting pedestrians and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of really chill, nice people that go to Mustang Week and H2OI and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not trying to make a blanket judgment or anything, but every time I see the highlights from those events, I don't wish that I was there. But it does seem really cool. Maybe someday I will go. I'd like to do more bullet stuff as far as like car shows and things like that. I did really like going to Mustang Nationals the one year in Hershey. That was a lot of fun, or Carlisle, I guess technically, but that was cool. So maybe I'll do Carlisle again. It's an easier drive. It's only like 3 hours for me. But yeah, it's kind of fun going to some of that stuff if everyone's mature and doesn't ruin the party with a bunch of immature stuff. Samuel says, did you get the Magna ride despite the reliability concerns? If so, how worried are you about it failing? I heard it's expensive to repair. The Magna ride, it's something that I wanted just because I like that adjustability, because I don't like doing modifications to my cars anymore. And so having that on the fly adjustment was really nice. Down the road, it could be expensive to repair. I don't know. I honestly don't worry about that too much, because it seems like sometimes it's not like the people who have had issues with it so far, it's not an enormous issue. It's sometimes can be fixed with some more inexpensive things. But the Magna Ride's not a must-have feature. I just think with the bullets, it made a little bit more sense because, for one, most of them seem to have it. But it also just, from what I saw, it seemed like non-Magna Ride Mustangs just still didn't handle quite as well. And for a car that I wanted to be able to do everything, I wanted to be able to chase down someone on a back road and also be a really comfortable cruiser. Having that duality was something I was really appealing to me. So that's one of the reasons why I went with it. But if you're going to be modifying, or you're going to be only focused on one thing or the other, then I think going for a non-Magna ride is totally fine. But I've talked to people that have non-Magna ride bullets, and it seems to be okay. But yeah, to me, I wasn't too worried about it. And anything reliability wise down the road, if it does fail in 5 or 10 years, it's not going to be the end of the world. I think if I have to put a couple $1,000 into it, even, I think it still would be worth it because I just love the car so much. But Newt says H2OI is a mess now. He went in 2018. It was nice, but now it's just ridiculous. Yeah. And it's, I know it's not always an age thing, but I also feel like being 30, I'd be one of the oldest people at H2OI, so I would kind of avoid it for that reason as well. Not that there's anything wrong with, teenagers in stance cars and all that kind of stuff, but just not my scene. But nothing wrong with it. I'm glad that people are still into cars regardless of their age and stuff. I think people that judge different segments of car culture they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, because if you look down or judge people that like different types of cars and different types of modifications than you, it's you're hurting the hobby in general. I think we should encourage any kind of car enthusiasm, regardless of what form it takes. And same thing goes for electric cars or whatever. Even though Tesla people can kind of be annoying sometimes, they're excited about their car, and the people that usually weren't excited about their car before. And so anyone being excited about a car, I think, is good for all of us in a way. So trying to live and let live, But Bobby Kobe says, what state do you live in? I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I live in Pennsylvania. I live outside of Pittsburgh here. All right. Sam says, which C300 was better? I'm guessing you mean my wife's C300. So she has the 2019 now, and then she had the 2016 before. And the 2019 is obviously much nicer. It's newer. She also got a lot more options on this one. So it has the digital gauges and the bigger screen and nicer headlights, all that kind of stuff. So I think the 19 is definitely the nicer of the two for sure. ATX Trent says, what's your favorite Nissan? That would be the GTR. I think they're fantastic. I love them. And if you need a really fun all-weather coupe and you can afford one, I think a GTR is still hands down one of the best picks. They're so sweet. And being a JDM lover at heart, that would be another fun car to have someday. DTS asks when I'll be posting the review of Beth's car. We were going to do it last year, and then everything got way too busy in the fall, and everything ended up it just didn't end up working out. And right now she's really pregnant, and so we don't want to have to do that now, because it's just a little bit more. She said I got pregnant. That's why we didn't film the review then. But because the first trimester can be kind of rough, and she was super sick and stuff. So trying to have her do anything in the fall beyond just her 10 minutes in the interior reviews was a lot to ask. So we didn't do it for that reason back then. And, so hopefully maybe we'll be able to do it this year. But at this point, it's going to be almost like a 2-year-old model. So it's not going to be quite as cutting edge. But if you guys still want to see it, I know many of you have been wanting to see her get behind the wheel of some cars. She can't really do that with the press vehicles unless I went through a bunch of hoops to get her approved. And she doesn't really care to drive them. But for her car, maybe we can still try and do that this year. I still would like to do it. It just always keeps ending up not working out, but hopefully we get to do it here sometime. Samuel says, why did you stop posting the annual compilations of your reactions? So actually with the reaction compilations, I always do them every time I get 100,000 more subscribers. So I did one at I think a 200,000 subscriber special, 300,000 and 400,000. I think I actually wanted at 100,000 too. So I always did it back then. Back then, I was getting 100,000 subscribers, close to maybe annually. So that's maybe why you remember it being annually. But yeah, since then, subscriber growth has certainly slowed down. So that's why they're not as frequent. But I still want to stick to that schedule. And I think that's a fun celebration to do every 100,000 subscribers. So whenever I hit 500,000 subscribers is when the next one will happen. But at the rate we're growing now, it'll probably be another couple of years, or maybe a year or two. We'll have to see. But maybe the channel will start picking up growth a little bit quicker, but we'll have to see. I'm not too optimistic because, like I said, there's a lot of choices for car reviews these days, and I know there's a lot of others out there that people like watching too. Bob is asking, how much does it cost per month, and is the GTR good in the snow? So if you mean, I don't know if you're talking about her car or the GTR, but her car, we just leased it, so it's like the average C300 lease. Now, she did custom order it, so hers is a little more expensive than an average C300 lease would be. We also did the prepaid maintenance on hers too, so that also drives up the price of that. So it's definitely pricey, but that's what you pay for custom ordering a Mercedes. They're a little bit more expensive than the lease deals you get on stuff that's sitting on the lot that's a little bit cheaper. Everyone's hashtag 500K. I would love to get to 500,000. We'll see what happens. Bob asked how many subs I got in 2020. I don't know. I think I'm averaging right now about 3,000 subscribers a month. So if we do the math, that would put me roughly around 36,000 subscribers a year I'm getting. So we'll have to see, if it continues with that pace or not. If that's the case, like I said, I think we're at like 422 right now or something like that. So, like I said, probably 2 more years before we get up close to that. Newt says, try posting some polls and stuff on YouTube. Subscriber engagement can help with the algorithm. Yes. I mean, really the algorithm is pretty simple these days. So it really comes down to watch time and how often you click when it's recommended to you. So basically, the best way to help the channel if you're trying to help the algorithm out is not even to watch it from your sub feed. It is whenever it's recommended to you, either on the homepage or in the recommended thing on the side or whatever. If it's recommended to you and you click it consistently, that sends the message to them that they should continue to recommend it more, and then it snowballs on itself. So basically, and then once you do click it, if you continue to let it play and you watch till the end, that's like YouTube's like the perfect scenario for YouTube is they recommend you something, you love it, and you watch it the entire way through. They're like, all right, we hit a home run. We gave them the perfect recommendation, and they watch the entire thing because they want you to stay on YouTube as long as possible. And they, want to, and they think that the longer you're on that video means you're happier with that video. And so those are the two things. This is why you'll see like Chris Fix, for example, he really drives it home to his subscribers to, try and get them to watch as much of the video as possible, because that's how you get on the trending page. That's how you do all that kind of stuff. And so those are the two keys. It really is that simple now. I mean, engagement does help with, it used to be that likes and comments really helped. And I think they might help a little bit, especially comments help. I think likes don't really help at all anymore, but comments do help a little bit. But really, as far as I know, this past 6 months to a year, it's all about clicking on recommendations and watching them till the end. Doing those two things is the best way to help the channel. And even if you watch the video or you just like have it playing in the background and mute it and just let it run or something, even if it's something you're interested in, like if you want to actually help the channel, that is the best way to do it. But yeah, I don't expect anyone to watch videos they don't want to watch. So, I'm just saying that is exactly how the algorithm propels people. And that's why when you see stuff go viral, it's because it was recommended to someone and they're like, whoa, this is crazy. And then they're engaged the entire time. And that's what sends that clear signal to YouTube. Bird says, wow, that explains why I've been seeing the same music video for the past 12 years. I love the song and I just keep on clicking. There you have it. Yeah, that is them. You're sending a clear signal to them that you love that. And so they will keep recommending that to you as long as you love it. And that same thing goes for channels, And so that's why some people are like, oh, I never see your channel pop up in our recommendations. And so it's like, well, if you don't watch it very often, they're going to think that you like the other channels better or whatever the case might be. And so that's why subscribing really does still help, because you can still manually go in and, go into your sub feed and see that stuff there and, make sure you're seeing the stuff you actually want to see. But it seems like a large amount of people these days never go into their sub feed, don't really even subscribe to stuff anymore. They just go off their recommendations and they know that YouTube will recommend the stuff that they watch regularly. And they just rely on that, which is why that stuff is so key. And honestly, even subscribers don't matter anymore, because you see, there's a lot of channels that have way less subscribers than me or have the same amount of subscribers that I do that get 10 times the views that I get. It's not about subscribers anymore. It really doesn't even matter about subscribers. Honestly, it's just about that recommendation. It's crazy. Newt says, just turn on autoplay and let it run. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to suggest anyone, manipulate anything or anything like that. But yeah, if you want to go on the car review playlist and just put on autoplay or something, that would definitely help the channel. But again, it really just comes down to, it's not even just about the algorithm trying to like screw over one person and help out another. It really just comes down to, YouTube's truly wanting to just give you guys the stuff that you enjoy the most. And so that's just what they think is the best way to judge that. And so that's really what it comes down to, is it's all about, you guys seeing what you want to see and making you happy so that you'll come back to YouTube and continue to watch stuff from whoever you want to watch it from. And so that's what it's all about. And that's what we do YouTube for, that's why you guys watch, is because you're wanting to be entertained or informed or whatever. And so that's our job on here. Bert says longer commentary is optimal, hence his long-winded comments that have been dubbed Shackleford short stories by my community. Yeah, that is another thing. And even longer videos, like, those certainly seem to help, like the weekly updates. Even though they don't get a lot of views, people watch a lot more of those. And so that certainly helps YouTube to send the signal that people like the weekly updates and, recommends those to some people. Unfortunately, it doesn't help them to grow in views at all, but hopefully someday those do gain some steam. All right. Clean White 6 says, let's all go on autoplay. Yeah. I mean, I won't be upset about it, but again, please no one do anything you don't feel like doing. And Newt says, yeah, don't want to skip the 2 ads either. Yeah, skipping the ads, if you let the ads run, that helps too. But honestly, that's also something that YouTube is also intelligent. They can figure out if you're not interested. So, it's honestly the ideal scenario is just YouTube gives you an ad that you actually are interested in and you click on because it's something you want to see, but I know that's pretty rare. Most people aren't super into ads and totally understand that. Bob says, do you still lose subscribers every time you do a weekly update? That phenomenon seems to have stopped. I know I talked about that, I think last year. That was a weird thing where every single weekly update I would lose subscribers. Thankfully that has stopped. I'm not sure why that was happening, but I guess all those people have left that for some reason were like, what? This isn't a car review. I'm unsubscribing. And so I think those people are finally all gone. But it's thankfully I think what's one thing that has really turned around in the past year is the weekly updates. I know so many of you were so vocal about how much you love those, and I considered getting rid of them a while back. And I'm glad that so many of you, really requested to keep those around, because I think those are some of the videos I enjoy doing the most every week, even though they're a lot of work. And every Thursday night is always a late night for me because I'm having to edit until 10 o'clock at night for those. So that's ready to go by Friday afternoon. But I really enjoy doing those. And I think, you guys really enjoy those a lot. So I'm glad I continue to do those, even though they, again, don't get great views. It's really, it's just great that you guys show up every week and seeing the comments of people that, watch it every Friday and stuff. It's pretty awesome. So I really appreciate all the support. Bob says, Doug DeMuro doesn't put ads in the beginning of his videos because he thinks that it will help his viewership. Interesting. I haven't heard that theory. I don't know. I feel like most people on YouTube these days almost expect ads. Probably I know people get annoyed if there's a lot of ads, but I don't know how many people actually turn off a video because they click and start with an ad. But I could be wrong. But it's an interesting theory. I didn't know he did that. Samuel, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I love the weekly updates. I watch them every week. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that so many of you enjoy those. And it's just really fun to do. I'm always fascinated with the new stuff coming out every week, even if, half the stuff these days is electric. And I know that upsets a lot of traditionalists and stuff. I think it's always exciting to see what's around the corner. There's always something new. There's always something exciting. And it's a great time to be a car enthusiast because there's just, like I said, we're really spoiled with the amount of stuff just in the past, 10 years that's come out. It's been amazing to watch. It's been a really fun ride. And Samuel says he skips the electric stuff. I don't blame you. That's why I put the timestamps in there on the videos. So you guys can watch exactly what you want to watch and nothing more. I totally get that. Ariel asks, why don't I do collaborations with channels? You might get more views and subs. I do a lot of collaborations. I just hadn't done anything, during COVID, obviously, just for safety reasons. But I did do a lot of them in the past. If you go back and watch, I've done bunches of videos with Engineering Explained. I did a bunch of videos. I actually have multiple videos with Redline Reviews where we were drive partners. And so I featured him in the videos. Even if you watch my C8 Corvette review, that one I did with Shmi 150. He was my co-driver in that one. And I kind of made a little appearance in his video and he made one in mine. And so I've done a lot of that stuff. And I've done even my bullet vlogs. I did a road trip with Chris Fix, Eric the Car Guy, Humble Mechanic, Engineering Explained. And we all did a fun little road trip and it was a blast. And we all kind of collabed and, featured each other in the videos and stuff. That was for the Indy 500 thing we did with Shell. That was a ton of fun. So I've done a lot of collabs in the past and, they might help a little bit, bumps my subscriber count by like 100 or something, but, it never really has done much for me. So, maybe it works better for others, or maybe if you do a lot of collabing, me, I only do it, a couple of times a year or something, but, I love doing collabs. I'm so grateful to have so many great friends in the car world. And it's a lot of fun to collab with them whenever I can. And Mario, thank you so much for a super chat here. He says, weekly updates are my favorite. I look forward to it every single week. Well, thank you so much for watching. And thank you for the generous super chat as well. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad you guys enjoy the weekly updates. You have to stay tuned here. Next month, they will have a new backdrop. So I'll finally be jazzing up the set. And I will have more to work with the new set. So I'm going to try and do nothing crazy, but I'm going to make it a little more visually interesting. Behind me, I'm going to finally get rid of the TV that I've been using. I'm going to finally get rid of that. I think it's served its purpose, and I think yeah, it's time for a little bit of a change of scenery with that as well. So the TV is going to go, and gonna have some more fun backdrop stuff. But yeah, it should be fun. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and hopefully you guys enjoy the changes as well. Yeah, Newt says pre-COVID stuff. I hope COVID's over here in the next few months. Clean White 6 NC, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, have you thought about the next vehicle of choice for the growing family? For now, we're going to stick with our current setup. So Beth has her Mercedes, which is a 4-door. So that kind of is going to be the main baby carrier. And then it seems like basically every single week I have a press car. So I'm always going to have, most likely at least something. And even if it's, if I have a Corvette for a press car that week, we can still use Beth's Mercedes as the baby carrier. So that's going to be what we're going to do for now. The new house is only going to have a 2-car garage. So we're not going to have any room for a 3rd car to garage or anything like that, which means I'm unfortunately going to have to wait for my next fun car as well. Although I have a friend with a very large garage, so I might store something with him and boot out one of the other cars onto the driveway someday. We'll have to see. But, in the meantime, I think we're just going to stick with that. Just from a financial standpoint, it makes sense to save a little bit of money and put the money into paying for baby stuff instead of for a 3rd car for now. But I think we should be pretty well covered between the two. And if I absolutely need to, a car seat does fit in the back of the Bullet. My friend did it with his Mustang. It's not easy, but it's possible. So in a pinch, I can also use the Bullet if I need to. So yeah, and Riley says, I have the opportunity to get a 2002 Mustang. Unfortunately, it's a V6 for $3,000 with 68,000 miles. Is there anything I need to look for specifically that you didn't mention in the V8 review you did? So yeah, I'm not an expert on that generation Mustang, honestly. But 68,000 miles, I would just make sure that all the maintenance stuff is done, because even though it's low mileage, you're still going to want to make sure the belts and stuff aren't from 2002. You're going to want to make sure that, the spark plugs, injectors, and those kind of things, make sure all that stuff is good, because if it's been sitting that much, if it only has 68,000 miles, it could be kind of gunked up with some of that stuff. So you're going to want to make sure all that's pretty fresh. Other than that, it should be good to go. Make sure the tires aren't old as well, because if it only has that many miles on it, if the tires are 10 years old tires are a dangerous thing. I'm still convinced that's what killed Paul Walker, was the tires on that Carrera GT were old and it just didn't grip as well as it should have, in addition to the high speed. But so I think, make sure that the tires are also good to go on that. Beyond those things, though, I think it's a great, good car to drive. Obviously, it's not going to be super sporty. It's not going to be super fast or anything with that generation V6, but, it'd be a great car for $3,000 and should be fun. You have a rear-wheel drive Mustang, and that's a really nice thing to have for $3,000. So I think that'll be great. So other questions here. Yeah, Bob says used tires are dangerous. Yeah, you definitely want to make sure your tires are good. DTS says, is it true that the Camaro is getting discontinued this year? Not according to the recent rumors. The recent rumors were that it's going to live on until like 2026, I think they said, and then they're going to finally kill it off at that point. So, that's all that I know. I think if it ends up lasting beyond that, it'll end up just being electric. Because they keep teasing a Camaro silhouette on that electric skateboard platform. So that would be my bet. But I don't think it's going to be discontinued this year. I think they're going to keep it around for at least until 2023, I think was the original plan. But we'll have to see if it goes beyond that. So yeah, Brian says, baby seats in the back of a coupe are a pain. Fair warning. Yeah, I know. My buddy told me it's definitely a back killer for sure. But yeah, it's like I said, I will not be putting the baby in the Bullet if I can avoid it. But if I need to, it's just good to know that I have a back seat that is safe and functional if need be. Samuel says tires are extremely important. People overlook them and sometimes cheap out on them. It almost killed my dad. Spun out. Wow, that's crazy. I'm glad he's okay. That is wild. And yeah, Tim says, I've always felt the same way, Matt. Did Paul Walker die from old tires? And I keep asking Jay Leno to be careful with his cars and old tires. Well, thankfully, Jay Leno doesn't seem to really push his cars a whole lot. So I don't think he's going to have to worry too much. But yeah, even at lower speeds, old tires are very, very dangerous. So It's just something it's very easy to overlook. I mean, Paul Walker was a car guy through and through. The guy driving the Courier GT was a race car driver. They know their stuff. They were smarter than anybody, as far as all that stuff goes. It's just, it's just one of those things you think, okay, well, it's low miles. The tires have tons of meat on them. They're fine, whatever. But there's all these other molecular breakdowns that happen. And even if they aren't worn off, they can still not be what they used to be. So that's crazy. But Jason says, hello, Matt. Hope January treated you well. Thanks for joining, Jason. I really appreciate it. And January was good. It's very cold here in Pittsburgh, but I'm ready for spring. But otherwise, it's been good. So there's that. And so we got about 1 more minute here. So I'll do one more question, then I gotta move on here. And I'm sure some of you will be getting ready for the Super Bowl and stuff. So we have Mr. Reed says, Matt, could you discuss your thoughts on the CT4 versus G70 3.3T? Thanks. So I mentioned this, I believe I did the CT4V after the G70. I can't remember because they were around the same time, but I did talk about them in both of those videos, I think, and I did compare them in those videos. So you can hear more thoughts on them in that video. But between those two, I'm guessing you're not talking about the Blackwing CT4V, just the regular CT4V. It's fantastic. I think that it handled better because the CT4 handled better because it had better tires. The G70 I had did not have, it had the sport package, but it had the all-season tires. So that definitely handicapped the G70. I'd love to try one on good tires. But I think the CT4V is really good because essentially it's a 4-door Camaro. That's what the CT4 is. And so you have a 4-door Camaro, which I think the Camaro is still the best handling out of the 3 muscle cars. You have that fantastic handling. You have the smaller engine with the Turbo 4. I think the CT4V is fantastic and so underrated by so many people. G70 is a great choice. Though. You have the longer warranty. It'll probably be more reliable. So there's certainly nothing wrong with that. And for the same money, you're getting a V6 and a twin turbo V6 with that instead of a Turbo 4. So there's a lot of merits to the G70. They're both fantastic choices, honestly. It's really hard to say which one is the best, just in a blanket statement. It really comes down to what your personal preferences are. Do you like that V6 sound better? Do you like, the Turbo 4 feeling of the CT4V? It's almost like a WRX on steroids with the CT4V. So that's also very fun. It just comes down to what you like. I think the CT4V might have a slightly larger trunk than the G70, but I could be wrong on that. There's very minor things, but they're very comparable. They're both fantastic. I would just strongly recommend test driving both of them if you can. See how they feel to you. I really, it's hard for me to say. I'd probably go for the G70 between the two, just because you have that longer warranty and you have the peace of mind of having a Genesis, which will probably be a little bit more reliable. And the engine sounds a little bit better than it does in the CT4V. So that would probably be the way to go for me. But honestly, you could almost spring up to a CT5V for not much more. And I think I probably would take a CT5V over the G70 with the V6. So lots of good choices. You can't, there's no wrong answer with that scenario because they're both fantastic and both very underrated cars that deserve way more sales than either of them get. So, great question there. But that's about it, I guess. I know there's lots more questions here. I'd love to do this all day, but my voice is getting a little bit tired here. And like I said, I'm sure many of you want to also get on to the Super Bowl festivities coming up here this evening and stuff. But thank you all very much for joining this live stream. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll be back for another one next month. Most likely, I think it's going to probably be like the first Sunday of March, which I think would be like the 7th. I think it'll be, or the 6th one, something like that is probably when I'll be doing the next one. And I've really enjoyed doing these every month with you guys. Thank you, especially to all of you who did the super chats, but also to everyone who joined here. It's great. Hopefully I answered enough of your questions. Thanks so much to Newt Media for moderating as well. Really appreciate it, man. And well, thank you guys very much for watching and have a great week. And see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned for all the stuff this week. CX-30 Turbo review on Tuesday, Escalade on Wednesday and Thursday, and lots more exciting stuff coming up later this month. So anyway, take care, guys. Thanks for watching.